wasting no time, right? Not even a week out. We're already looking forward to 2020. So in our team coverage today, we've got a lot of other people talking about what these young people are saying. But I want to take a moment just to talk about this moment in history. The shutdown's still looming. We've been here before. I want to tell you a quick story that sort of describes the feel of what it was like in there. Congressional leaders are going to be coming here to the White House to speak about border security and possible solutions to end this shutdown. This is now the third longest shutdown this country's ever had. Then there's the question of tax refunds. Will we get them? Today, President Trump's going to be heading down to the southern border, and as he's been doing for the last 20 days, he's going to be pushing for that border wall. The big question is, are either of these bills likely to pass? And frankly, the answer is probably no. I wish I had some good news to give to everybody, but unfortunately that's not the case. Well, the legal saga continues today against Paul Manafort. Day 13. Yesterday were the closing arguments. Today we're moving on to jury deliberations. The fund's been around since 2001. Initially, it was just for the families of those killed during 9/11, but as thousands started to get sick with cancers, respiratory problems, it was expanded to help them as well. In February, though, it was announced that claims would be cut by, listen to this, 50% for pending claims, 70% for all new claims, something which first responders called a disgrace at this hearing today.
I was just a 25-year-old probationary firefighter on that beautiful Tuesday morning of the 11th.
Their stories are all different.
In the moments after the Pentagon was attacked, I became what is known as a 9/11 first responder.
But in front of Congress this morning, they had a similar message.
My husband died a few weeks ago of 9/11 related brain.
They're firefighters, police officers, widows. Their message to Congress is simple: help us.
I am here today to ask Congress why they believe that my life is not worth the same as those that became sick before me.
They're angry about cuts made to the Victim Compensation Fund. All of this due to the influx of people who are getting sick. As the fund gets drained, cuts were made to ensure that it lasts until 2020. Organizers of the fund say only Congress can fix this by allocating more money.
This isn't a bad dream that I'm going to wake up for. I'm living this nightmare. I'm part of this nightmare.
In our 4-month investigation, we spoke with local responders like retired firefighter Tim Callahan, who responded to the Pentagon. He, too, was calling on Congress to act.
Put the money where your mouth is. You said never forget, then don't forget.
And I'm sorry if I sound angry and undiplomatic, but I'm angry.
Also testifying was John Stewart. He's, of course, a New Yorker and a longtime advocate for the VCF and was visibly shaken while he spoke.
They did their jobs with courage, grace, tenacity, humility. 18 years later, do yours.
Some powerful words. Now, we also shadowed these first responders, which you can see on your screen right there, as they lobbied Congress asking for their support. They already have enough co-sponsors in the House. That's the good news. The question is going to be the Senate, though. They need 60 votes for it to pass. I just got off the phone with one of the advocates. They say right now they have about 40 co-sponsors, give or take 1 or 2. If you want to see the full story and take a look at which lawmakers are not yet co-sponsors, you can find it all on our website, WSA9.com. But you listen to them, just the emotion in their voices as they talk about this. If you're like most people, you're probably sick of hearing about this shutdown. After all, 2 weeks is a long time. But when was the first shutdown? It turns out that was in 1976, when Gerald Ford was president. Now, this was the first year there could be a shutdown because Congress adopted a new budgeting process. Anyways, Congress proposed a $56 billion spending bill, and Ford said no, issued a veto. That led to a shutdown lasting 10 days. And that opened the floodgates. Under Carter, there were 5 shutdowns, ranging between 8 and 18 days. Under Reagan, there were 8 shutdowns, although those were pretty short, never lasting beyond 3 days. And under George Bush Sr., there was just 1 shutdown, lasting 3 days. Then came Clinton. He only had 2 shutdowns, but one of them was an absolute monster. Just a month after a prior shutdown, Clinton found himself at an impasse with Republicans, led by House Speaker Newt Gingrich. That shutdown set records, lasting 21 long days. Then began 17 years without a shutdown. George W. Bush had none, nor did Obama in his first term. 2013, that changed. A dispute over funding for the Affordable Care Act led to a shutdown lasting 16 days, the 3rd longest in American history. Finally, that brings us to the presidency of Donald Trump, who's had 3 in just the last year. That puts him on a similar path as Carter and Reagan, but a big departure from recent presidents. Right now, we're hearing a lot about obstruction and collusion. And we should. It matters. But there's something else in this report that we should all be focused on. Russia attacked our election. We've known this for a while, but the details in this report are staggering. Of course, there was the hacking. An agency known as GRU stole emails to help one candidate and hurt another. And that's terrible. But I'm really concerned about what they did to us on social media. They played us. And frankly, we deserve a lot of the blame. You see, Russians pretended to be activists. They posted things that would no doubt get us fired up. And we all fell for it. And before you get mad at the other side, consider this. They were pretending to be activists on both sides. All in all, these posts reached an estimated 126 million Americans. And this is happening right here at home. Remember Jen Abrams? She was that Virginia Trump supporter with 70,000 followers on Twitter. Then we found out she was actually a fake person created by the Russians, again, to make us angry. And that's the main point I want to make. They were playing on our most divisive feelings. They knew what would make us angry, and they posted about that. They wanted us to hate each other. So my message is two things. One, be careful who you follow and what you share. But two is this: don't hate the other side. Don't demonize the other side. You're playing into the hands of those who wish to break our country apart. I, for one, believe that we could do so much better. Sex trafficking. Right now, as we speak, it's happening. In the next couple of minutes, I'm going to introduce you to people who have been trafficked. Young people who live in our area who are currently trying to escape sex trafficking. But for me, this all started with a car ride. In the front seat was a really awesome woman named Tina Front. She is a survivor of sex trafficking, and she really knows what she's talking about. We were driving in the dead of night. It was just after 2 in the morning, and we just saw so much. Honestly, things that made me angry.
These are pimps. There they all are.
She said it so casually at times, where I was like, how could you be so casual about something like this?
Okay, right here too. That's a P. Yep, he a P. He a OG actually. She's working.
She's working? We also saw a lot of victims, girls and boys working the streets.
Right here to our left. So, trans, young. Yes, yes, she's working.
What got me was that this was downtown. Downtown, the center of commerce, and yet we've got these young teenagers that are being trafficked right in front of our eyes. I think there's a disconnect when you're out there driving and you see these grainy images. They almost seem like adults. You could forget that these are young people. For me, that all changed when I actually got to meet some of them. We went to a safe house for a group called Courtney's House. We saw these teenagers, young girls we're talking about, 13 to 15. They were talking about love, of all things. Miss Tina would lead them in discussion, asking them things like,
What does love mean? There's no right or wrong answer.
Love is something that, when somebody really cares for you, they show you honesty, and then they show you that you can trust them. If that person treats you right or shows you everyday proof that you mean it.
I'll tell you, that was the painful part for me, was actually meeting these young girls, hearing them laugh and talk, and then knowing that they were the same grainy images we had just seen out on the streets. That was painful.
I'm not in an angry place with my life now, you know?
Then I heard Tina's story, which was horrifying. She was born in foster care and was living in Chicago. Eventually, she was adopted, but she was vulnerable. She was looking for a role model, and that's when she met this guy, 15 years older than her. He was 28 years old.
And he told me he grew up in foster care, and he told me that he was adopted, and then his family gave him back after a year. You know, none of these things were true, but I believed it was true, and what he was trying to do was bond with my story.
Then came her 14th birthday, a day that would forever change her life. She had this big fight with her parents over curfew. She wanted to stay out later, they said no, so she stormed out of the house and she called that guy.
I get in the car. But I think we're just gonna go driving down the street, and my intention is to come back home. But we started to drive in Chicago, the signs are changing, you know, getting further out on the highway. And I'm like, where are we going? And he's like, look, I'm on my way to Cleveland, because he had a family business.
Eventually the car stops and they get out, and they're in front of an 8-bedroom home in a gated community. It's beautiful. It's not some shed.
When I get in the house, there are 4 other girls there that are all under the age of 16. and 2 other guys, and no one's thrilled to see me. Nobody's happy or anything like that. There was no phone, when I went in there, and there was no windows. And then the next process is a seasoning process. So the door locks, and there's not a phone or anything. And 2 other guys come in, and they sexually assaulted me, and that's actually called the seasoning process.
That term, the seasoning process, a sick way of saying she was raped. That sent her on a decades-long road of being trafficked. Do you ever cry?
Yeah, I definitely cry. I think that everybody works on their things, and growing up, I was never really good at showing emotion in front of people, definitely. Probably the people who get me to cry is the kids. They get me to cry when they had straight F's and they got a C for the first time. I cry all the time, ask them.
So I'm looking at all this, and I'm listening to her story, and I'm just getting frustrated. I'm thinking, what can we do? Can we do anything to try and stop this? Well, we're going to try something a little new here. Miss Tina's agreed to create a number of videos for specific audiences. One for young people, one for parents, one for community members. And the hope is that we could watch these and share them, and together maybe we could put a dent into this problem.
Because I promise you, everybody that watches this show has come into contact with somebody that was trafficked. Whether you knew it or didn't, you did it. You did. And I need them to see it's not like Taken. It's nothing like that. It can be Ward 7 or it can be in Tinleytown. It can be at Tyson's Corner or it can be down the street. That's just the real reality of it. Assuming that our kids are safe because we live here and we live there, no kid is safe because this is about manipulation, and every child can be manipulated.
Xander feels normal here. It's this farm over in Bowie called the Big Purple Barn for obvious reasons. And when here, Xander's like a lot of 10-year-olds.
The smallest one is Bradley, who my mother calls my cousin. Hey, Bodie, no.
Xander plays with the animals here, climbs fences, basically is just a normal kid.
I'm used to getting these splinters.
But in a lot of ways, Xander also comes here to escape.
There's no being bullied here, and there are only a couple true slip-ups. Hello, Coop.
Slip-ups.
Cooper.
As in being misgendered. You see, Xander identifies as non-binary, meaning from a young age, Xander didn't feel like a boy or a girl. That's why Xander goes by they, them, and their, not he or she.
I am who I am, and now I'm actually coming out.
It's a life that many just don't understand.
And, well, yeah.
And it's led to a lot of pain for Xander, who's no stranger to ridicule and bullying. That's why we're here today.
I don't care if I'm going to be bullied. I will correct them and move on with my life. I will try to correct this problem.
Xander's trying to change people's minds and show them what it really means to be 10 and non-binary. So we were invited to shadow Xander for months through the ups and downs.
Xander is a history-obsessed, theater-obsessed kid.
None of this would have been possible without the consent of Xander's mom, Rachel.
They started noticing or saying that they felt different when they were about in kindergarten.
That's when Rachel first started to understand what Xander was going through. Now, some 5 years later, Xander is taking a big step. This year, in the 4th grade, Xander came out to the rest of the class.
When Xander told me that they wanted to come out this year, I worried, but I can't show Xander the worry.
You see, Xander's a student here at the Heather Hills Elementary School in Bowie. That's where I first met Xander, and right away, Xander told me that coming out wasn't easy.
It was very hard.
And why?
Well, I didn't think they'd want to be my friend anymore.
Xander definitely feels bullied at school. Says kids misgender on purpose, make jokes. Many just don't understand.
And some are like, no, you were born this gender, so you have to be this gender for the rest of your life.
And that's why the barn has been so special.
I like to give the tours.
It's a place where Xander feels safe.
Over there, by the white car.
Something Xander doesn't feel at school.
It's getting so out of hand that I'm having to, if you do this one more time, I will tell Miss Manuel, the principal.
And the school is trying to address this. They didn't want to speak on camera, but told us that teachers were given training in August on what it means to be non-binary, and the teachers were taught about Xander's pronouns. The school also identified so-called safe staff to help Xander deal with problems at school. They're also training the students. The school counselor spoke with Xander's class 2 times about what it means to be non-binary and about Xander's pronouns. And the entire school took part in diversity training, 3 hours over 6 weeks, in which part of the focus was on gender identity. But Rachel thinks more training is needed.
It's extremely frustrating because I feel like the bullying's going to continue because nobody's going to teach the children what they need to learn. No one's going to explain to them that Xander's not a totally different kid.
Stella!
In the meantime, Xander has longed for a community, some sort of group to help navigate this complicated life. But Xander and Mom couldn't find anything, so they took matters into their own hands.
Mine is a metallic egg. I'm drawing the pride flag. Hello!
This is the brand new Bowie Area Non-Binary and Transgender Youth Alliance. Once a month, Xander meets with others in the same or similar situations.
So shiny. Yeah, I love shiny.
People like Liam,
I like sparkly and shiny.
who's still exploring their identity,
People are jerks.
and Claire, who's 13 and gender fluid. That means some days, like this one, she feels like a girl, and other days like a boy.
I wanna.
She's been a mentor of sorts for Xander.
I want to educate people on being different is good and that you don't have to be the same as everyone else, because if you're the same, you don't stand out. And if you don't stand out, then you can't be cool.
Here, Xander and the others can just be kids.
Feel like I am surrounded by friends and that there's no criticizing here. I'm perfect.
A safe space, just like at the farm. In these places, we see who Xander really is. Xander is just a kid.
Usually I just feel like me. In truth, I just feel like me.